born on the island of Lewis off the coast of Scotland. He went to Canada in 1778, and he was the first white man to cross the northern part of the North American continent. In 1789, Mackenzie left Fort Chippewyan with 4 bushwhack canoes and a party of Canadians and Indians. He pushed his way north to the Great Slave Lake, and after 4 days found a small river at its western end, which led them out upon the great waters of the river, which now bears their discovered name. It took him to the Idaho George,
I remember the years they took all the children, and they locked them away. There they taught them to pray. There were children each night who were quietly crying. They are in the walls and the halls of my mind.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to advise the House that a final Indian Residential School settlement agreement has been approved by all of the parties, including the Government of Canada. Together, the parties have achieved a fair, a lasting, and a historic agreement. We hope that this settlement agreement will bring closure to this unfortunate chapter in our history and help us to move forward in a new spirit of partnership with Aboriginal Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
How many little souls that surely were dying, and they'll bury so deep all the shame that they keep. They will all be alone in their garden of Eden, alone in the walls and the halls of their mind.
A lot of our former students are totally, even today, after the 60, 70 years after the fact, they're still not in their right frame of mind in relation to what happened to them. A lot of them have never had an opportunity to tell their story. Whereas last July 10th to the 14th here in Inuvik, we held a Beaufort Delta Residential School Society's annual reunion. It was the first kind that was held up here, and it gave us the opportunity for students from all over the Western Arctic and also Central Arctic to come to Inuvik and spend 5 days as to trying to figure out what happened to them when they were young and why it's bothering them today, 50 or 60 years after the fact. So a lot of these students former students had a chance to tell their story, and a lot of weight has been lifted off many people's shoulders because they could not understand why they felt so down the way they did.
Do you feel you deserve the money?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, 8 years of my life, you know, even though I really appreciated those 8 years, you know, and I will never run out of stories, you know, like we sit around and with our friends and we reminisce about our school days in Stringer Hall. I mean, all we do is laugh. We got some very good experiences in Stringer Hall. Well, I do anyway. And so I think I, deserve something. I'm not going to say that I was happy 24/7, 195 days a week, a year. There were times when I was very lonely. And then there's so many that's gone now that did go through a lot. And they didn't get anything, Maybe a lot of them had a hard life because they didn't know how to deal with many issues that that came out of those schools, like all the anger and loss of culture and language and identity and that true person that you are inside you, like your true identity. A lot of that was smothered by, like whatever was taught in those schools.
To this day, yes, it's two whole different worlds. Today you learn to combine the two. Back then it's two whole different worlds. I know that I didn't have a choice in saying that I wanted to come to school. I used to go out on the trap line with my father, go out on a lot with his schooner, with my brother-in-law. We'd go seal hunting, we'd go camping. Coming from a place of being a country sort of explorer, I guess, being out on the land, knowing who you are, Inuvialuit, Inuinak, and coming to learn to write, read, Dick and Jane most of the time. I guess it wasn't easy because I can really feel what the days were like then. I remember Crowley Hall was on the left side of the other side where maybe the greenhouse is, or somewhere around there. And then the Stringer Hall is up at where the pool, must be the family center, is now. I remember the other side would be the Roman Catholic side where the Crowley Hall students would go and others from the community, I guess. And then this side of the building was the Anglican side of the students. This is where I went. Mind you, we had a roof over our head and a bed to sleep in. The needs were met, but not in our own comforts. It's all these other things were new to us. Our clothes were taken. We had to have parkas and muklaks that were made for us that we wore. I know some of the students had come with, the clothes that their mothers made, mitts, muklaks. And sometimes I hear they don't remember what happened to those. Things that we're not used to, we were doing. Sometimes, some of the kids would talk of sour milk, oatmeal, sometimes for lunch. I remember having whitefish the very first time, and I didn't have that acquired taste for that type of fish. The first time we moved up here, it was pretty hard to get used to. So this is the entrance we used to go in by. And I know a lot of us would be flocking into just to run in after recess and sometimes from the cold weather.
Like you couldn't go up like the way they go up now. You had to be in line, eh? Like the boys would be on this side, the girls would be on this side. Like we had to be right against the wall, walking up, eh? And you had to wait for a teacher to bring you up. And I had this classroom and I had another one over here. Then I moved upstairs for my last 4 years. Nothing hanging on the walls. I could assist bare like this, eh? But you would, I think right in the middle of everything, you would have the Queen's picture right on the wall. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I think it was this one here. When I first came to Inuvik, this was my first classroom, kindergarten. It's actually a lot smaller than I remembered. Eh? It used to be so big, you know. I remember I know the teacher was over here, the desk was over here, and they didn't have these, they had the desks, the all-time desk, just lined up. I think they had 5 in the back, and then 5, and then they had 3, 4, 5, 6 over here against the wall. And I think I was right in here. It's quite strange for me actually, because that time I hardly spoke any English. It was hard because when we came in, we were told just to speak English and nothing else but English. I remember when we tried to speak our own language, either a yardstick on the desk or you get slapped in the head. So it was quite hard, you know, being a little kid not understanding what's going on, eh?
I didn't even know my name was Sandra, because it was just our Inuvialuit names at that time. So it was right from square one, you know, having to learn the English language here in this very school, right from day one. And Mr. Holman really put a desire in me to learn the English language. When we went in the bush, June and July, that's all we did was play school. My mom and them couldn't understand it. You know, like my mom, 10 months of the year you're in school, you're still in school. You know, and we just made sure every scribbler was filled with, especially when we started doing cursive writing. Oh my God. I mean, like, sharpen with pen, just steady. My mom just couldn't believe it. She thought we were nuts. Should be out there fishing and, you know. But no, we just wanted to be just ready for September.
At that time, my parents were working on a Julan site. It's quite hard for me because I remember crying all the way from the Julan site till I got to Stringer Hall. Eh? Even in Stringer Hall, you know, crying in bed. And having a stranger say, you know, big boys don't cry. You know, it was hard. I had to, if I needed to cry, I had to hide someplace, eh? Because I was so lonely for my parents.
My brother was about 8 years old, and I could see him on the other side of the wing at Stringer Hall, but I couldn't go and run and meet and greet him. Even in the dining room, we weren't able to just walk over and say hi to each other or talk to each other. When I think of it, how can one have that authority over another human soul to say you can't do this and you can't do that. And all it was, I needed just a hug from him.
And then just the fact that you're taken away from your parents for 12 years is an awful experience. I mean, even if nothing would have happened, even if it would have been an absolute positive experience and there wouldn't have been any abuse, there would have been pain in these young people's lives because they were taken away from their parents for 12 years at the most vulnerable time of their life. Well, when I first came, it was, you have a romantic notion about the North. You sort of, first of all, you see Native people a certain way and you think everybody dresses in extremely traditional clothes and that, even they're, would be living in tents or whatever. And you quite quickly, woke up to it was a very different reality. And I think what happened was I found that students broadened my perspective. Not only about the North, but even about myself, in the sense that you start to realize that as soon as you put people in a box, that becomes a problem in itself. And so what they sort of did is, in many ways, I had a lot of students play tricks on me and little games and stuff like that. And what it did is you started to see that people wanted systems humanized. And if systems didn't become humanized, they become oppressive and they hurt people. They didn't understand that Native people had something to teach others about how to love their children and to raise their children. They felt that all the information and the knowledge and the expertise was coming from their side. And that was, I believe, that was the big cultural mistake that was made right at the very beginning. And I would say that mistake was made both by the government as well as by the church. Because they thought, we have all the information, we can teach you everything, and you just soak it all up and it'll help you become a better citizen. And we know that some of these people exceptionally love their children. They want the best for their children, just like everybody else does. And they have something to teach us about what it means to raise their child up as a Gwich'in or an Inuvialuit boy or a young girl, just as much as somebody else knows what it means to raise their kid up. And we didn't listen to that at all, I would say. Very little. And I think that when I hear saying that there was a cultural genocide, I actually believe that's where it took place. It took place because they didn't believe that these people had anything to teach them and that the parents loved these kids to the same degree that they love their own.
Because a lot of people in my age don't have parent skills because they've never had their parents around. It's just teachers, supervisors, nobody to show them love. Like everything was planned out for you. Like there's no room for love in there.
There were so many of us upstairs. Sometimes there was over 100 of us. Like we never did get hugs or goodnight kisses or, like all those little things that little kids need. It became to where like you didn't even want to get touched. Somebody say, good job, and you say, don't touch me. Keep your hands to yourself. It was always keep your hands to yourself. Keep your hands to yourself and mind your own business.
You go to bed at a certain time, you get up at a certain time, you have meals at a certain time, everything was, So it's a schedule, happening all year round, right from when you come to school to when you leave. You follow a schedule, everything every day.
I wouldn't say that I'm a bad mom. I had to learn to mellow out and listen to my children and that, because so structured from Stringer Hall, You know, you're told this and that was it. They had their chores. They had certain ways to fold towels, the way they taught me in Stringer Hall. You know, that's the way I had to show my daughters, and that's the way I expected it. And how to fold sheets and how to make your bed, just almost like in the army. And that's where that's one of the negative effects, I think, of what came out of it.
And I guess a lot of resentment came, it started building up, and it just started coming out around grade 5 or 6, eh? And there was a lot of resentment, a lot of anger. And I turned to alcohol and drugs, because it's at that time it only seemed like that's the only thing that can push the pain away for a certain amount of time, and then, you know, it starts all over again. And I ended up drinking and drugging all the time. Eh?
And I was one of them. I mean, I drank for over 20 years. There was nobody in this world that would tell me anything, you know. I drank my little heart out till I just about killed myself, you know. The doctors had to tell me to stop, because there must be something in that was missing, you know, something that was hurting me, or something that was, you know, that I wasn't dealing with properly.
And I think when you become institutionalized, you lose the ability to make choices. You absolutely want things to be set for you in stone. They find it hard to be flexible sometimes and to adjust to new things. And I think to some degree that comes from being, in an institution that emphasized rules and regulations too much and didn't emphasize the freedom of choice, and seeing that they were active participants. They weren't just people who were told to do something and went and did it without any participation whatsoever. And I actually believe that the Department of Education and the government failed in that area, because they themselves didn't have much imagination. So all they were doing was dealing with numbers, and they were in some ways indifferent to the numbers. It was only when you started to see suicides, it was only when young people started to die, it was when young people started to revolt against the system, and you had alcoholism around you, and you had a lot of pain, that all of a sudden they woke up. And so, of course, you get into you get into a system where people sort of started to point fingers at one another. But in reality, it was about not having any vision and not calling people into something greater.
But I had to do something with my life, and when I did, I started to remember the good things that happened when I was going to school. So when I started doing my work, this is the first place I came, right here. I sat right where my desk was. I sat there really quiet. I just looked around. And look around and looking to see what happened, how this happened. I think when I did that, I started to heal, because I didn't need to be afraid anymore. You know, as an adult, I don't have to be afraid anymore.
I don't really remember going back and forth through these halls, but all I know is that I used to enjoy going out to the gym. You know, I know we used to come running down here to have our visit. That's one good memory I have of here.
Yeah, it seems a lot bigger when you're a kid. I mean, looking at it now, it's so small, eh? I mean, you know, looking at it as a kid, it's a lot bigger than this. You know, basketball is going on here, floor hockey, soccer. Even had some plays going on up here, eh? Up here used to be so full, eh? With spectators. It'd be so loud in here, eh? You know, when you play basketball, floor hockey, or soccer, eh? It'd just be full up here.
Like you. It's really strong activity with that time we enjoyed together.
It's like an iceberg, eh? When you say an iceberg, you see an iceberg there, you see the iceberg floating around. You don't see the big part of it down there underneath the water. You only see that little top of an iceberg. And I always say that people only notice bad things when it happens. You don't notice all the good things that might happen in this iceberg that's waiting for you, that's under the water, you know?
We don't remember all the good things that happened. When we did something, we will reward it. We forgot about that. All we thought about was what happened when we did something wrong. Because that's all that's stuck in here and in here. But when you did something right, you got a star on the top of your paper to show that you did good. You know how you feel when you start to feel good, you're all tingly inside, you know? And then the tears start coming down. Yeah, I did something good. Somebody rewarded me something.
I'm a firm believer about holding the government or whoever else did a wrong accountable and responsible, and justice is required. And I also believe that that will not only free the people who were victims, but I also believe it'll free and it'll bring an acknowledgement of the people who also did good. There were some teachers who had a great understanding and a great empathy for the kids who were coming from the community.
I don't ever remember getting punished. I don't ever remember anyone punishing me. My kindergarten teacher, I remember her name was Mrs. Carruthers. She was like a middle-aged lady. She was really nice, and she knew there were quite a few of us in our classroom that couldn't understand English. So she took the time and made us see and like work extra hard.
I think in grade 6, I think, an old lady was my teacher. I remember her very well because she used to keep me after school and just sit and talk with me, you know, and say, you know, I agree with you that it's wrong for us to take your language. So that gave me some hope. Like I would sit there with a little old, gray-haired lady, sitting and talking to me, understanding me, you know, and I think that made it a little bit bearable because she understood what I was going through.
I always say I was really lucky, you know, to have Mr. and Mrs. Holman look after me. He hired Inuvialuit women to sew all our canvas shoes and our parkies, even though we had no fur, you know, stuff like that. But at least we had parkies and we had canvas shoes. You know, he could have just ordered us skidoo boots, but he tried to keep us, I think, as traditional and close to our own way of life as he could. You know, so I was really lucky like that. I like learning. I really, really like learning. You know, you just wanted to be top in school. Mr. Holman made it to where everybody just wanted to be top student. And he recognized every student in that school, you know. Like, I remember having highest marks in grade 3 when exams, like near June, and he bought me these little novel books. They were kind of advanced, but there was about 5 in that set. They were quite thick for grade 3, you know. But I didn't care. I read those books all summer, right till they got lost in the flood, you know. And so he gave us things like that, and he recognized us. He just, even though there were 500 of us.
Not only for myself, but I know there's lots of people who absolutely loved working in the residence. And they felt that they did their best. And yet at the same time, everybody gets dragged through the mud. And in a sense, you never do anybody justice if you just generalize. I mean, you have to see a face, you can't just see an abstract person, you know?
None of the kids could speak Inuvialuit. Very rarely you get a few that will understand you fully. I said, when I was 5 years old, I was standing in this very room. Mrs. Crothers was here. She was trying her darndest to teach me English. I said, now I'm standing here trying my darndest to teach them Inuvialuit. I said, how the roles have just changed. You know, it was scary. It was like, Ali. First I was feeling angry, you know, like first I got sad because I was saying how hard I'm trying to teach these kids their language, you know, and then I went through some anger and I told Lena, it's so sick, you know, she said, but you can't be angry. It's not their fault that they don't know the language. Try to go ahead in any way, try to get those kids familiar with the language. Give them, root them with their, who they are. Give them a sense of identity. Let them know they're Inuvialuit people, that we have a unique and very distinct language, you know, and that they have that opportunity to learn a few of the words. Makela. Nice and loud.
I told myself that, you know, rather than blaming somebody for taking something away from me, you know, I can use it to my advantage, because they gave me the education to think, read and write, understand how to read things. So they gave me the initiative to fight for our rights, you know.
Successful in having all our schools recognized 100%. So that was a very positive aspect. There are 2 processes for compensation. The first one is for loss of culture, loss of language, and separation from family. Now, everyone who went to residential school is entitled to that it's called the common experience payment.
You don't have to have suffered abuse to get the common experience payment. It's based solely on the number of years that you went to residential school. So it's $10,000 for the first year, or part of a school year, and it's $3,000 for each school year after that, or part of a school year after that. So that means if you went to residential school just for 1 week, you're still eligible for the $10,000. And if you went to residential school for 1 year and a week the next year, then you're eligible for $13,000.
So let's say that a former student went to residential school for 12 years, and they would be entitled to something like $40,000. And then there's another process for physical and sexual abuse, serious physical and sexual abuse. It's called the
independent assessment process. And the amount of money that you'll get through the independent assessment process, if you apply for it, depends on how bad the abuse was. And it also depends on this legal term that's called loss of income, which means that if you can show that the effects and what happened to you later in life because of residential school abuse, if that meant that you weren't as able to work as you might have been or had trouble holding down jobs, that you might be able to get compensation for that as well. Anything that you get in the independent assessment process doesn't take away what you get from the CEP. It's added to what you get through the CEP.
One of the aspects of the package is a healing component. And there's been $125 million designated to the Aboriginal Healing Foundation.
Money for healing programs and money for commemoration events and ceremonies and truth-telling ceremonies.
In a way, I feel satisfied that happened. In some ways, I'm not, because it happened, and I think the apology came too late. For some people, anyway. Some of them are passed on, or some of them are gone so far down that they're having trouble pulling themselves back up there. You know, some become heavy use of alcohol, drugs, they become homeless.
No amount of dollars will ever be enough to cover anyone's pain. For me, it's just I guess for me that part is not really important to me, like the money part.
It's a recognition that something has happened here and that we're reconciling ourselves with it.
To some people, it's the beginning of a journey of healing. The government recognizing what they did. The government recognizing, apologizing for what happened to the students that went to residential school.
As an individual, I know when a pain is inflicted on you as a person, I would like to say that if someone says, I'm sorry for the pain I caused you, my response would be, hopefully in communication, to validate the acknowledgement from myself to the person giving me that acknowledgement. Most times I say, yeah, thank you for the validation.
151 healing agents are released into your body to help your body heal. When you are thinking positively, when you have goodwill thoughts in your head, your brain produces those healing agents, and it releases it into your body to help your body heal. Isn't that wonderful? God sure knew what he was doing, when he created our bodies. He gave us the capacity to self-heal. That is the child who is in love.
For me, forgiveness is important to me. It's something I feel I grew as each time I did that part in my own life. I don't think I'd be as strong as I feel today if I didn't accept someone's apology. To be honest here, to be truthful, I don't think I'd be as strong as I feel today. and enjoy life to the best of my ability that I'm doing now.
The one who's holding the balloon, you're going to blow it up quickly, you're going to tie it, and then with your partner, you're going to put it between your hips and you're going to break it.
That's exactly why it's very important for us to go through the Truth and Reconciliation process. Under the Truth and Reconciliation process, if these people, and some of them are in leadership that has a hatred for the white man, if they went through the Truth and Reconciliation process and are understood by others, but they also understand others, maybe that bridging could start happening. So generations are going to pass, and that hatred is going to disappear. That's the way I look at it.
And my mom, she taught me that, once I went back home, one of the best things that she would tell me is, don't repeat what others do to you in the same way. No. Don't take on the same kind of behavior they're giving you. Don't treat them the way they're treating you. Someone do something wrong to you, reverse it. I never understood that really till later on in life, what that meant.
You switched your energy completely, eh? You have the power to do that through the healing power of laughter and play. So I just want you to remember those things, that you have the ability to help heal your body, to help take care of your body. Okay? Did you enjoy that? That was awesome, wasn't it, eh?
Well, I think we're in the right we're walking in the right direction, eh? We're starting to realize that what's happening with a lot of addictions that's happening especially with residential school survivors, eh? And deciding how they feel, what they want and how they want it.
Very good. Very good. Some of the things that they taught me in that school is the way I live today. Looking after younger ones all the time and trying to teach them something. I'm sure that's where I am today. That's one of the stronger personalities or talents that I have in me is to teach. It's been a long struggle, I think I'm doing what I want to do in life.
There are many people that have moved on and, come to have good role in being part of the society as very productive people. And some of those people has been my role models. And that will have a big part in my own, my own journey. To put some of this stuff behind and move on.
Alone in the walls and the halls of his mind. He tries to be a father for his wife.
There's really, for me right now, it's really no other way but to move on. One of my things that I like to carry with me is that even though I'm a widow, I have my adult children and my family and my grandchildren down the road will grow up, is to be able to present myself to the very best of my ability with the mistakes that I've made in the past, the shame and guilt that I carried, is to come out of all of that and be able to maybe make mistake here and there, but not to linger in those moments too long, but to get up and stand up. Hasn't been easy, but hey, life is never really easy, yeah? It's what I make it to be. It's a difference.
Because I'm doing something about it and not crying about it, you know. I think the crying time's over and the healing's gonna have to start.
I remember the year you were the children, and they locked you away and taught you to pray, and your voices each night still quietly crying. Somewhere in the walls and the halls of